Why is that so satisfying? The answer is half steps. Half steps are an amazing little musical device that pulls the ear forward and makes everything so much more interesting. And that is the topic of today's video. I'm Alan Matthews from Classical Guitar Shed. Hello. And in this video, we're going to be talking all about half steps, how to recognize them, what to do with them, why they matter, and how you can use your knowledge of half steps to make everything you play more beautiful. If you enjoy it, please subscribe to the channel. So that little snippet was the very ending of the prelude from J.S. Bach's First Cello Suite. And so here it is. So why is it so good? The reason that this chord goes to this chord so well, so it's so satisfying, is because of this. For one thing, there is a half step in the top. And what is a half step? Before we even get into this, a half step is just one fret. On the page, it's any one note going to the next note that's right beside it. Whole steps, 2 frets, they're also very interesting in the ear, but half steps take it. They're really close together, and they're they lead the ear in a particular way. Here we have the C sharp leading to the D. Very satisfying. It's also called the leading tone in this case. It leads up to there. Well, also, to make this one even better, we also have the note right below it, G going to F sharp. So then we have these notes really satisfying. The ear wants to go there. This is a very dissonant interval, meaning it's the sound waves clash in your ear. And so it settles out so beautifully. This particular way of 2 notes going different directions and settling is really popular, and because it sounds so good to resolve. So these are half steps. This is at the very ending. If you'll notice, this happens right at a bar line, and this is really frequent, and we'll get more into this. This is another musical example of it happening at a bar line. Why would it happen at a bar line? Half steps very oftentimes tell us that the chord is changing underneath. So whenever we use a half step to move into another chord, it sounds more natural, it sounds good. And if you think of music as a game of show and tell with your listener, even if your listener is just, your stuffed animal collection in the corner, then ideally we demonstrate that the chord is changing. We don't just play it and just hope that they notice, or whatever the notes are. Instead, we tell them, look, something's happening, and here it is. And so we unfold it like this. And that's what a half step does. Da, da. So whenever we bring out the half step, it doesn't have to be garish and overt like I just did it, but if we just lean into the half step a little bit more, the bottom note, or the first note of the half step, but especially the note just below going up, that's going to be a more beautiful chord change than if we just play it straight through, or if we accent the downbeat. Listen to it both ways. It's a little lackluster because it's obvious. Okay, well there it is. As opposed to, it's just a little smoother. It's just a little more elegant to do it that way. So bring out the bottom of the half step, especially if it's the note right before a bar line, like it is in this example. We can also use these in the bass. So we've looked at melodic examples so far. We've looked at 2 times whenever they happen in the top voice. We can also lead the ear really well with the bass as well. We're still in this same piece here. And here, I kind of messed it up, but you can hear and here. That's a half step. We really want to get there. Yes, and there's actually one in the in the top as well, going from the C to the, or from the D to the C sharp here as well. But the bottom line is you can find half steps all over the place. If you see them in your bass line, use them. It'll be more interesting in the bass line than just whatever it is, the big spaces in the bass line. Just makes it more interesting. So far we've talked about changes in harmony. That means the chord is changing, right? And we're using half steps to signify that the chord is changing, and we're bringing out the note, the bottom note of the half step, and doing it. Here, this is another line of the exact same piece. There are half steps abounding in this particular line, and that's because a lot of this is what we call stepwise, which is if we play a scale, then there's going to naturally be a couple of half steps in there. And so whenever we're playing this noodly stuff like this, just moving lines, we're bound to have some half steps. And some of them are really important half steps, and other ones are less important half steps as far as what they're doing for the music. And so then one of the things that we can do to make our music more beautiful is to identify the really important half steps. So let me just play this for you first. So that's the line, somewhat. And so then which ones are important? Well, the first ones I would look at would be the ones that are at big spaces. So looking at the bass line down here, then are there any right here? Here? Like on these main beats right here, right? On the main parts, which is the mid bar, the bar and the mid bar. Are there any there? Because that's probably where there would be harmony changes if we're going to have it. And so then we can look at it and see that there are indeed some of those in that. That's one. That's one. And this is not, but it backs it up because we've anticipated this note, and so it actually is right before that one. So then those are important ones. You can also look at when a note is out of the ordinary. And so if all of a sudden you have a half step and we can see that through an accidental, meaning the sharp, like this one, G sharp to A, then these are really interesting ones as well. And so if we look at it, then these are the most important half steps in this phrase. And so then playing it again and bringing these out a little bit, or bringing your attention to them, the line will make more sense and it'll sound better. Da da. So, da da. Also an out of the ordinary note on the top, right? The B flat. And then there's the next one. And then we're off and running with the other stuff. So these are the ones that I would take special note of when playing this piece. And really this second one right there is less so, but still, it's still a good one. And here. And here, and here. So these are the half steps in this. Now there are still other ones in here, right? If we look through here, we can also find other half steps within here, and there are a fair amount. These are the other ones. So if you look at it, there's a ton of half steps through here, right? And that's why it sounds so turbulent and like something's really happening. It's really exciting writing because of all these half steps. They provide tension and then release. And so whenever we add a whole bunch of them in here, we get a lot of tension. Which brings me to another point, which is whenever we just have a big string of half steps. And this is the very ending of this piece. So tense, release it, there it is, right? So whenever we have a big string, this is called chromatic, just a chromatic line. It's just nothing but half steps. And so it's just da 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 da. Rah! It just builds and builds and builds because of that. So it has a particular style, and the whole point is to create tension, which we can then release, and that makes for good music, makes for good storytelling. It just makes for a good time listening to it. So in your music, the question is, where are the half steps? Especially if you don't understand what's going on if there's just some confusing music that you can't really figure out, one of the ways is figure out the phrasing for it. Then one of the ways is to identify your half steps and look and see if they are telling you that the chord is changing underneath it, and then bring that out so that you actually direct the listener. Because if you're confused, I guarantee you that anyone you play it for will be confused. So getting really clear on it is one of the ways to make it more beautiful to anyone hearing it, and also for yourself, because then you'll know what to listen for in the music. All right, I hope you have enjoyed this foray into half steps. I love them. It's a really fun thing to do in your music, is to find these and use them as little tension release spots and bring them out. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Please subscribe and have fun. Take care.